Pesach Sherbo, and I'm here with Terry Hayes, co-host. I'm from Spot. Terry's from Tennessee, and we're about 7 hours difference in time. Here in Israel right now, it's what month are we in? August 29th, 2019. It's 3:02 in the morning, and welcome to you 8 o'clockers over there, and some of you in other time zones. We appreciate you joining us at B'nai Noach Connection with Israel, Torah for the Nations, for our weekly meeting, discussion, teachings. The teaching series we're doing now is we're talking about the 7 laws and essentially where they're from and how they apply. And we're going to a little bit of depth, but not what we could really go into, which we'll do later. And why do I say that? People like to, the way that most of us have learned, especially those of us in the United States of America. Hello, Blaine, good to see you. The way we've done it is we go from, let's read a book about it and let's make up our own decision about it. Hello, Angelica. Good to see you. George there. Hello, George. We do it in a specific way. We're used to do it. We're taught to do it in our schools, in our universities, in the churches, organized religion. We read stuff and then we kind of apply our own thing to it. And I was counseling somebody this week, and I said to him, wait a minute, I have it written down because every once in a while I say something, I say, where did I get that from? That what we're doing here is not a DIY project. What is that? Do it yourself. DIY. I put the initials wrong. Do it yourself program. When your relationship with God, and Terry mentioned this in a blog, if you're going to be something, understand something, learn something, you're going to go somewhere and learn it. Whether it's auto mechanic, woodworking, accountant, chef, whatever it is that you're learning, you go and learn from somebody. Or if you're going to be a doctor and you go specialize, you learn and you learn and you learn before you start getting involved in a whole bunch of other stuff. But people think with God, oh, I'll just pick this book up and read it, and I'll decide what's good and what's bad, and I don't need any learning, I don't need any teaching, I don't need anything. And that's wrong. It's not the way to look at it. It has to be just like you do learn anything else in your life. You sign up for a course, you walk in, you sit down, and you start learning before you do yourself opinions, or I don't think that's right, or I think Terry used an example in a class, an algebra class or something. Was that you, Terry, to use it in the blog?
I wrote a morning thought this morning.
Oh, morning thought, that's okay. That you don't go and tell the teacher what you think about it, because it doesn't make any difference. The teacher's going to tell you what it is, and then if you want to use it, use it. If you don't want to use it, don't use it. But when you come around into the Noahide circle, we're finding that a lot of people are doing just this. We have people that have not had years of learning. They've read some books. They think they've learned something. And now they're teaching people erroneous information. They're telling people, well, this is what we've learned so far, and we're going to give you all these choices, and you decide what you want. Or they go and they decide, well, we don't like what they're teaching over here, so we're going to teach you this over there. This is absolutely the worst way to do things. And you guys have heard me say this before, and it's so important to remember that when you decide to walk away from where you've been, I don't care where it has been, you can't keep looking backward and comparing to see if it's better than where you were, or maybe something's different. Your past brings you to where you are today. And your past is part of your journey that brought you here today, so you don't regret it, you don't get upset about it, you don't start looking backwards. You say, okay, my past is my past. Now I'm going to start learning what it is that I have to learn for the future. And there has to be like you have to kind of put a little wall up in your head, in your thinking, and say, well, you know, I've heard this before. Yeah, they said this over here, so why is this any better? Or they're thinking that they can give their opinions of something. I think I talked about this last week, but people would tell me their interpretations of the passages in the Tanakh or in the 5 books of Moses, the Chumash. I'd say to them, don't think. And it was, well, how do you not think? Well, we think all day long. But we're not supposed to think about what God says and decide if it's right or wrong. We're supposed to listen, do, and then understand. That's how this whole thing got started. At Mount Sinai, a group of people, about 3 million of them, told God, okay, we'll do it. You can tell us about it later, but we'll just do what you say. You can explain it later. Our opinions aren't going to mean anything. You say it, we're going to do it, then you'll explain everything later on. Because they really didn't have a choice, actually. Can you imagine standing in front of that mountain and all the rumbling and grumbling and lightning and the noise and the sound of the shofar going on and all this stuff? And they were standing there trembling in fear and awe in front of God. And they told Moses, look, if we hear this, we're going to die. So you go talk to him and bring us back, and we're just going to do whatever you say. Of course, we know it didn't work out exactly that way right away. It's still, today, it still doesn't work out exactly that way. But the point is, we have to get in our heads, just do. Just do. We'll learn everything later. And when you come into this, I want to call it return to the truth, because it is a return to the truth. You have to start like I'm newborn. Hey, I'm fresh. My mind's open. Talk to me. And you start your relationship with God that way. And we talked about last week, the number one that we put at number one, some of them write, do not worship a false deity. Essentially what God says is, know who I am. Know who I am. Don't have faith, don't believe, just know who I am. He's our creator, he's our father, he's our king. All those things and all the names that we have for him in Hebrew represent different aspects of him, not different hymns. But you'll notice when you want to pray for healing, he's God the healer, right? He's not God the punisher, he's God the healer. That's the way you're thinking about him right now. And we read in the Tanakh, as we start over again reading, which we'll do in a month or so, it's constantly the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And then we have the God that we met at Mount Sinai. And there's a different relationship involved there, but not a different God. I mean, Abraham couldn't have handled at his stage what Moses handled at his stage. It's a growth thing. You grow into it. The people grow into it. Human beings grow into it. Mankind as a whole has grown immensely since the Garden of Eden. We're living in a much better world today than ever has happened in history. People say, well, everybody's still fighting and doing this and the greed, and that's true. But the world is living closer to God, or most of it, than they've ever lived. Islam is a monotheistic religion, even though they really don't know truthfully who God is. They say there's only one God. Other religions are close to it, and some are kind of far off. But what I'm saying is, your focus has to be on knowing who God is, number one, and number two, conforming yourself to how He wants you to live. Just living the way He wants you to live. It's not a religion. Terry uses my little quote, it's not a religion, it's reality. And that's what it is. Here's how your Creator, your Father, your King wants you to live your life. And He's giving you a choice, do it or don't do it. And some people think because He gave us a choice, we can have opinions, we can change it, and all that kind of stuff. Wait a minute, I missed a thing here. Yeah, because I always tell people who are new to the laws of law to talk to a neighborhood rabbi and refer them to some books. Well, that's good. But not all rabbis, see, the term rabbi is great. You guys study for it. I have what they call smicha in one area right now. You have to have 3 before you get a little degree that says you're a rabbi. Mine's on milk and meat, according to halakha. But why would someone come to me for milk and meat, or for, let's say, not milk and meat, let's say for purity in the home if I haven't studied it yet? If they come to me for purity in the home, I have to send them to a rabbi who's a specialist in that. Rabbis are divided into specialties. And everybody in the Jewish community, like here in Spot, we know what rabbi to call to get a proper answer for whatever our question is. Everybody has their specialty, like doctors do, and like lawyers do. Let me just finish my statement here. There are very few out there, very few that have specialty in what we talk about. I happen to have been studying it and teaching it more or less for 14 years. There's other guys out there that have done the same thing, but their guys come in new, and they're not bad intentioned, but they get it too complicated. They get it too complicated. So you got it. It was very nice. I got from another group, a lady from another group recommended someone else call me. They had a problem. They needed some help and some coaching. And so they called me and we talked. And it's always good to be able to help people out. And I'm not pulling it out of thin air. If you guys want to have somebody, Charles and Shara, there you go. How you doing? Hello, hello. The lady you recommended called me and I talked to her, and I think she feels much better after talking. I think she's headed in the right direction now. But recommend people, send them to a specialist. Don't tell them to look for any Chabad. I used to tell people look for any Chabad. There's too many Chabad houses around the world that have no idea that this is going on. Some of them are so focused on their communities where they are, they're not involved in this at all. And you don't want to have somebody to have a bad experience. Oh, good, Shara. That's great. I'm glad it helped her. So I just wanted to preface everything with those. And Terry, go ahead. I'm going to turn it over to you.
All I was going to add is like one of the shuls we went to in Atlanta when we first started our conversion studies, the Shabbos class that we attended every week. The rabbi of that Shabbos class, he was a rabbi, but his specialty was in koshering appliances. He had the torches and all of that stuff to go in and kosher an oven and kosher appliances. And that was his specialty. And I remember him telling me that. I didn't know it from the way you're explaining it now helps me understand what he told us then, what he did as a rabbi.
Exactly. You know, when we moved in here, which will be a year, let's see, today's 27th. Yeah. In 3 days, it'll be 3 years since we moved here to the spot. And I went to my rabbi at the shul here, and I said to him, I need help. We're unpacking all this stuff. We need to go through all the kashrut rules, make sure all the utensils, everything is good to use, and da-da-da-da. And we brought everything from our last place, and so a lot of it we just had to get rid of, but we couldn't make it kosher. But every time I asked him a question, he says, I'll let you know tomorrow. Because he wasn't about to give me an answer or something, and it was on exactly what you just said. He had to discuss it with the rabbi that was an expert in it. Our rabbi is an expert in family purity. So him and his wife both teach. She teaches the women, he teaches the men. They have classes on family purity. So everybody's got their specialty. Just because they have the title rabbi doesn't mean that they're a specialty. They're a specialist in what you need to have. And so that's why we recommend people to go to a specialist about it. So you got to try to tell people it's not DIY, it's not a do-it-yourself project. That there's a wealth of information they can pick up from the guys that know what it is to pick it up. And there's been some good books put out. I look at the Divine Code, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. Great book. I love it. It's good. But it's not good for every human being. It's good for those that really want to get into that level of it, but there's no requirement to get into that level of it.
It's written as a Shulchan Aruch for the Noahites.
Right, a Shulchan Aruch for the Noahites.
Yeah, it's written in that format.
It is, but it's not the Shulchan Aruch. In other words,
oh no,
we live by the Shulchan Aruch. We live by it. We look up things, how to do things in there and everything, because we have certain restrictions on our lives that God placed on there because he wants us to be good teachers and good emissaries for him. But we're only 0.2% of the world's population. The rest of the world, God doesn't say you have to do all this. He says, follow the 7 universal laws that every human being has to follow. And do those, and make each day, make yourself a little better than you were the day before. People forget that God is not looking for perfection from anybody. He doesn't expect this from any of us. He knows who we are. What he looks for from us every single day is progress. A little bit of progress every day. Just another, even if it's a baby step, making ourselves a better human being, which are defined by the 7 universal laws. And we discussed the first one last week, which was, know that I am your God. No. Didn't say believe in me, didn't say have faith in me, he said no. Will there be a specialty on B'nai Noach? The rabbis that want to do this, they go out and learn, they exchange ideas between each other, they have different, they're going to be people that want different levels of learning, so they'll never be like they give courses on milk and meat and courses on family purity and courses on, there'll never be a specialty on that unless a rabbi decides to make themselves a specialist on that. And believe me, there's so much to learn from. We learn from the Rebbe, even in the Shulchan Aruch for the Jews. There's so much we can learn on and rely in our Gemara, in the Talmud, and even in Zohar, in Kabbalah, and even in the Tanakh. There's so much to learn. And if you look at it through the eyes of it, it's not something that we're all together working as a team. Those who are Jewish and those who are not Jewish, we're a team. We're taking care. The first man, you've heard me say it before, was set down in the Garden of Eden to do one job, take care of it. That's what all of our responsibility is, each one of us, to take care of what God created. And he says, okay, you guys do this, and you guys over here do this, and you guys over here do this, but all under his direction. So to answer your question, Veronica, the only way a person becomes a specialist is to actually, we have to do a lot of research and looking and reading in the Jewish, I mean, there's tens of thousands of Jewish books and you know, the things that the rabbis wrote on what should be done and how it should be done. And one of the things, and it's part of what we're going to talk about this week, sitting here, got them out of the wrong order. Here we go. Do not curse God's name. In other words, don't defile God in any way. Don't. You know that the whole reason that we write G-D on a piece of paper, because it says we can't erase his name and we can't destroy his name. So if we put the G-D, we didn't write his name. I can say God. I can say Hashem, the name. I can say different things, but I can't say, there's certain words I can't say out of my mouth even if it's not for prayer. Because I could accidentally defile his name, although he wouldn't, get punished for it, but you don't want to do it. Why do it in the first place? So it says in Leviticus 24, 10 through 17, it talks about a Jew that violated the injunction that is in Exodus 22 and through 27, he in anger. And in Leviticus 24:15, there's a very specific statement. It says in Hebrew, ish ish. Ish is a word for man. And when it says ish ish, it means every single man, any man. That means no matter if you're Jewish or you're not Jewish. Who curses his God shall bear his sin. It means every single human being. Ish ish. Lots of the things that are said in the Tanakh, in 5 books of Moses, are said to the whole world, not just to the Jews. But over the millennia, when people started studying other religions, they lost the understanding that a lot of this is not only just for the Jews, it's for everybody to learn from. Totally for everybody to learn from. And I hate it when my train of thought jumps the track, and that happens once in a while. When we don't, yes. Did you realize that God planned everything that's happening? It's all part of his plan. It's all in the Torah. And he created the 70 nations plus one, Israel. We're not counted among them. But because we're separate, he kept us separate so we wouldn't forget, so we can relate to you guys. That's why every morning I have to read how you do the sacrifices, how you set up the inside of the temple, and how you clean the candelabra in the temple. For what reason do I have to do this? We don't have a temple right now. But so mankind doesn't forget, all of mankind doesn't forget what they're supposed to do. Traditions, cultures disappear off of this earth because of times changing, becoming more modern, and people forget what was done before. Their cultures are totally destroyed. Indigenous people in different areas like Australia and America, in South America, their cultures have been totally wiped off the face of the earth because they couldn't pass it from father to son. And that's why we read the Shema and the Ve'al Havta, the 3 paragraphs under it every morning, because it's the instructions are there. You have to teach it and speak it into the hearts of your children. You have to repeat these things every day, every day, every day. You have to teach them every day so that they don't get forgotten or somebody doesn't forget to do a certain thing in a day. And all religions, now I know Judaism is called a religion, but that's just the way mankind has described it. It's a way of life that God gave us. But all man-made religions are there for a purpose. Think about it. What happens to us on a daily basis? We have what's called Ashkaha Pratit. We have divine providence every day. Example, you yell at somebody, or you get angry at somebody, you turn around to walk away and you knock a glass off a counter, you trip, you hit your funny bone, which is unpleasant. I don't know why people call it funny bone. But some little thing's going to happen to you. Why? That's a little tap on the shoulder from God. Why were you nasty to this person? Why did you treat this person? Why did you say that? Why did you take that thing that didn't belong to you? So there's all kinds of things that God has put out there as tests. And believe you me, all these other religions are tests for people. Can they get through it? Can they overcome? Abraham had a test. At Akedah, when he had to take Isaac and put him on the altar. He had 10 different tests, actually. The Jews had all kinds of tests out in the desert. But what are they for? Not to see if you're going to do it or not do it. Not to make you, oh, you're a bad boy. But to teach you, this makes you stronger when you do this. When you get through it and you push forward. And you get more comfortable with God. We understand something, and it has to be repeated and repeated because people forget about it, even Jewish people forget about it, that everything God has done all through, hello, Marinella, good to see you. How you doing? Everything since the first day of creation that God has done is good. He's told us it's good. So when something happens and people use expletives with God's name and why me? What do you do this to me for? And all this kind of stuff. They're actually doing what it says not to do. Do not curse God's name. And it's a prohibition for every single person on this earth. And anything that you can think of and a lot of us have done a lot of things in the past to curse his name. What do? I ate the wrong kind of meat. I'm cursing God when I do that. Oh, it's not just that I am eating, not following his instruction. I'm telling him I don't care about your instruction. I don't care. I know you're God. You're my God. I accept you. But I don't have to follow this instruction. That is what we call it, taking God's name bashav, with no meaning, you may have this great connection with him and feel that you're so strong with God, that everything is so good, and then you go and do something that is totally off course of what you should be doing from what he said to do. We call it sin. In Hebrew, of course, we call it, the word is het. Het means we just missed the mark. We didn't get it right. But if we just say, yeah, I know you said not to eat pork, but I'm going to eat it anyway, to a Jew, you're actually telling God, your word doesn't mean nothing to me. It's the same as cursing him. Go ahead, Terry.
Question based on what you're saying.
Yeah.
When I first began the conversion process, when I was studying for it, and the rabbis would say, why don't you just be a Noahide? I would say, well, of course, I didn't know. I would reject it. I didn't know what I was rejecting because I didn't have the knowledge yet. But later in life, or later on, as I've become a Noahide, and I think back on my rejecting of the Noahide laws, I'm like, wait a minute, these are God's laws, and I was saying they weren't good enough. And I hadn't come to the level of what you were just talking about. So in essence, some of us Noahides who are non-Jewish people who diss the 7 laws can be maybe moving over into a violation of the prohibition of blasphemy, because we're saying something that God gave us, oh, it's not good enough.
Well, that's true, but see, there's a huge but here. At that point, you didn't understand. When you don't understand something and you do it, God says, okay, just get it right. So you're really not, it's not as serious a matter. You were on the right track. Look, when my wife and I first started following all this Noahide stuff, what is this stuff? Who's made this stuff up? Till I actually got into deep learning and we started sharing about it. We thought it was just somebody trying to copycat or something. Honestly. Now, I didn't have a very good view of this whole Noahide thing, but was I blaspheming God? No, I was ignorant. God forgives ignorance. It's when you start deciding not to do stuff is where the problem begins. Most Christians are ignorant. They don't realize they're blaspheming God. It's not the fact that they're made a conscious decision not to go this way but go this way. They've been taught and brought up a certain way. When a Jew, that happens to a Jew, like you're brought up by parents that aren't very, that maybe they're atheists or maybe whatever, and that happens to Jews too. The child is called, during the Catholic times, the priests would send people out to the Jewish neighborhoods and kidnap the kids and bring them into the Catholic schools, and they were there. They could never get out back in the day. And we call it a kidnapped child. A kidnapped child is not responsible for what it's taught because it's being taught erroneous things. So the person that is ignorant is like one of those children that is kidnapped and taken away. They grow up in a home that's their father and mother are the same sex, or they're taught that there is no God, and they're taught these things. They're like children that have been kidnapped. God says that if you follow other gods, he will persecute you to the 5th or 10th generation. But what he's saying is, you got to wake yourself up. Each generation brings its own, in God's words, and I'm going to use quotation marks, curse, or he's going to hold them responsible. But all it takes is one generation to wake up and it's over with. Someone has to wake up and open their eyes. Nobody's being punished for their parents. They're called a kidnapped child. And that's what I was called. At 70 years old, 69 years old, when I came back to my inheritance, everybody says, oh, you're one of those kidnapped kids. I said, yep, that's what I was. Because I grew up in a Reformed home. Although I believed in God, trusted in God, and everything else, I didn't follow what he wanted me to do. Nobody had taught me it. So God doesn't hold that against you. But once you realize, yeah, those who kill in the name of God, and there's quite a few of them around the world right now doing that kind of thing. If you ever notice, just a quick aside, if you ever notice the conflicts going on in the Arab worlds, the Muslim worlds, in almost every one of their countries, they're fighting each other. They're killing each other, the Sunnis and the Shiites, and they're killing each other over which prophet is right. They follow different prophets. And what do they don't do with us? We read in the paper that they tried a drone strike from us last week. They did it again last night over the northern border. The southern border still has stuff going on, rockets coming across. But why aren't all these Muslims coming against Israel? There's who knows, a billion of them, maybe more. Well, they would, if they ever woke up, they could just march through and push us all into the sea. But why is it not happening? Because God is keeping them so busy with their own little infighting and denominationalism and everything else, they're not paying much attention to us. Every once in a while, they'll throw a rocket or shoot a gun or send a drone. But they also know, and it's in their Quran actually, that we have a covering by God. They can't defeat us. All these people say they can defeat us, they know they can't. So they'll go after the rest of the world first. Here we are, this little teeny thing. I think Shira said to me that Israel fit like 37 times in the state of Texas or something like that. And they don't bother with us, but they're in France and they're in Spain and they're in the USA and they're in South America and in Africa. When you start walking with God and you reach what we call righteous of the nations, and you do what he says because he says to do it, not because you think it's a good idea, that he told Moses to tell the world, you automatically come under that coverage. It's an automatic thing with God. You've earned your, let's see, to put it into English, you've earned your portion in the next world, or the world to come, or the next life. You don't have to worry about it anymore. It's a burden that just comes right off your shoulders. The only thing you're responsible for is making yourself better every day in some way, shape, or form. Treating people kindly, doing the proper thing you're supposed to do according to the instruction that he gives. Now, I pulled up something that came out of, I'm pretty sure it was this week's Torah reading. Let's see. Volume 12. Do I have it on 12? No, it's on 13. Okay. I'm going to read a few portions, and we see in the portions that it affects everybody. He tells us, first of all, in 12:28, we're talking about Deuteronomy, I think. Yeah, Deuteronomy. Keep and hearken to all the words that I command you, that it may benefit you and your children after you forever. And you do what is good and proper in the eyes of the Lord your God. When the Lord your God cuts off the nations to which you will come to drive them out from before you, and when you drive them out and dwell in their land, beware lest you be attracted after them, after they're taken out, exterminated from before you, it says, lest you inquire about their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods, and I will do likewise. You see, once you reach that point of righteous Gentile, and it's not hard to righteous of the nations, it's not that hard to be there. The righteousness that God gives to you is the same thing he gave to Abraham, because you faithfully do what he says to do. So all you have to do, and hey, I'm going to do my 7 laws. Most of them are pretty easy except the first 2. And that's what we discussed last week. And this week, know who God is. Know him. Don't believe in him. Don't have faith in him. Know who he is. And don't talk little of him. Don't do things that blaspheme him, that at least not on purpose. Once you learn something, once you know it, you're responsible for it. So you should do it. Now, that doesn't stop you from doing all the other things you want to do in life, but you do it in his way. What is the whole Torah? I can't remember who said what to who, but a student or a Gentile came to one of our teachers, I'm trying to think if it's a Baal Shem Tov, it might not have been Terry, you might remember who.
Hillel.
Huh? Hillel, okay, yeah, right. He says, teach me the Torah standing on one leg. And Hillel lifted up a leg and looked at him and said, the whole Torah is simple. Don't do anything to anybody else that you don't want done to yourself. Period.
The rest is commentary.
The rest is all commentary. That's exactly right. You don't want people to yell at you, be angry with you, so why should you do it with other people? You don't want people to be unkind to you, why should you do it with other people? Just don't do to anybody else what you don't want done to yourself. Now, I know it's a negative way. The golden rule, they say, is what, doing to others as you would have them do unto you. That doesn't mean anything when I hear it in my ears. But when I hear, don't do to anybody else anything you don't want them to do to you, that means a whole lot to me. A whole lot. Don't look at them funny. Don't laugh at them. Don't get angry. Don't be jealous. Be happy. And that's the whole basis of what God wants from us. You know, everything else, the whole 7 laws and everything else are based on that particular thing, and includes him. Know who he is, and don't take his name in vain, I guess is what people say sometimes. But it says here, don't go after the gods of other nations, and don't ask, how did these nations serve their gods, and I will do likewise. You shall not do so to the Lord your God, for every abomination to the Lord which he hates, they did to their gods. How much plainer can it get? Every abomination to the Lord which he hates, they did to their gods, and also their sons and daughters they would burn in fire to their gods. Of course, that doesn't happen anymore, as far as I know, on this earth. At least we've grown out of that. But he says, everything everybody does for their gods, don't do for me. It's an abomination to me. Do you know that in the temple, during prayer, the priests and the people would prostrate themselves on the ground. They would kneel. They would raise their hands up like this to God. And because other religions have adopted it and started using it, the Jews, if you look at a bunch of Jews praying, you see them standing with their feet together, standing up, and they sway. They just sway a little bit because you get a rhythm in your prayer. It helps you keep the rhythm, like somebody beating a drum or something. And some sway back and forth, some sway a little side to side. But we're very restricted in our movements because the rabbi said, God said, don't do what they do. If they go up, glory, hallelujah, and raise their hands and kneel down and prostrate themselves, you can't do it anymore. And that's how we got that. That's for us. That's how we got that. But really, there's no reason to do that. I've been to some meetings where I couldn't believe it. People rolling on the floor and jumping up and down. Now, those weren't Jewish meetings, but there were other meetings. But God is very, very strict about this, not to do these kinds of things. Now, if we continue on to Deuteronomy 13, chapter 13:1, everything I command you, that you shall be careful to do it, and you shall neither add to it nor subtract from it. The true meaning of this phrase is not that if it isn't written in black and white on the page in the Tanakh, in the Chumash, you can't add or subtract. Because if God says don't worship other gods,
Pesach, I think you froze. Your internet froze. Sometimes the internet in Israel is a lot slower than it is here in the United States. He's probably going to, there he comes.
there we go. I don't know what happened. Like almost like an advertisement for a Zoom conference.
Yeah, it froze. It froze, and we didn't catch. You were still on Deuteronomy 13:1 about not subtracting.
Everything I command you that you shall be careful to do, you shall neither add nor subtract from it. That simply means that we have to do, we do, and we have to do what he tells us to do. But there are things he tells us to do that we have no idea how to do them. He doesn't tell us how to do it. Why? Because, look, God made the heavens and the earth, and he has total rules over the heavens, is what we say. But we're his partners. We're here on earth. He gave it to us down here on earth, so there are certain things he gave us the flexibility to decide how to do it. He gave us the flexibility to be able to slaughter animals for food anywhere we want, but not how we slaughter them. Because we can't be unkind to animals, and we can't cause an animal pain, inflict, and be mean to them or anything like that. Even he gave the rabbis the authority to set up what kind of knives to use and how they're going to be used. If they have a little teeny nick on them, if you look at your knives at home used for meat, they all have little nicks. You can't even have that, because that little nick, if you're slaughtering a live animal, hurts the animal. And it's forbidden. And there's a certain way you have to do it. I don't know, I don't want to get into all the gory details, but it's the way so that the animal doesn't suffer. So we have to add to that. We have to figure out how to do it, what he wants to do according to the simple statement he made, but how can we then accomplish it? A sign for your front in your eyes, sign on your arm. That's where we get those little black boxes from we put on every morning during prayer. In the beginning, they used to put them on and wear them all day long at work and everywhere. It got a little tiresome. The straps got caught in equipment that they were doing, or whatever. So finally it came about, okay, we'll wear them essentially at morning prayer. And how we put them on, the little box on the forehead and the little box up here on the upper arm and the straps, and everything has a meaning. But we had to figure out how to do it. So we added, he says do it, but he didn't tell us how, so we had to add how to do it. So when he says don't add or subtract from the words, he means don't all of a sudden tell me I'm a split personality with 3 personalities. Or don't tell me I'm telling you to go out and kill anybody that doesn't believe. He doesn't want that from us. He also goes through a whole list of things, and he's really, really down on something very in particular. If a prophet or dreamer of dreams comes to you and says, let me share something that I got from my God. Let me show you this prophecy that, look, it came true, or I did this miracle for you. It says, even if your brother, the son of your mother, tempts you in secret, or your son or your daughter, or the wife you embrace, or your friend who is your own soul, saying, let us go and worship this other God, they're wrong. And that was a punishment, it says you'll be punished by putting them to death. Although, understand the death penalty, anytime you read it, means that's the worst thing to do to them. But it says here, if they tell you to worship the gods of other people around you, near or far from you, from one end of the earth to the other, you shall not desire him. You shall not hearken to that person, and neither shall you pity him or have mercy on him. He wants us to be focused on him. We focus on him. We don't blaspheme him. We don't use his name. You hear it all the time. I don't have to give you examples. He wants you to constantly think of him as the Father that watches over you all the time and will correct you when he needs to. But you have to also have the fear that he's the king, and if he gives you an order, you got to do it. It's yes, sir, because he has the ability to take a life or give a life or take a life. None of you here have ever stood in the presence of a person, a king, or any kind of person, in their presence, that when they look at you, they have the ability to say, take this guy out of here and kill him. If you can't even imagine what it is to stand in front of somebody and have them look at you and say, what if he decides he doesn't like me? He doesn't like the color of my hair. He doesn't like my eyes. He doesn't like my hat. He's going to go kill me. Or he doesn't like who I am, so he's going to kill me. Yeah, he has a power of life and death over you. We have no idea what it feels like inside. So it's hard to relate to God in that way, but we're supposed to have that kind of fear for God. We have to know that he's so much in control that if he wanted, and I personally don't think he would ever do it, but who knows? Every morning we say a prayer, and we talked about this last week. Thank you, King, for giving me back my soul. And in your great mercy and faith, you've given it back to me. Tomorrow morning, he doesn't want to give it to me. I'm just not here anymore. I'm gone. And if I haven't lined myself up with him, I'm really gone. It's like I never existed. So I have to have enough fear in me to understand I have to line up with him. That's the only way. And then I have to have the love for him so that everything I do, that I do it with, oh, well, I got to do this other thing for him. No, you do it because you love him. I was talking to somebody the other day, maybe you, Troy, I don't remember, but I said, and this is the truth, when you sit down and study God's word, he is sitting there across the table from you, and he is helping you. He enjoys it. He loves it. He's your father. He's helping you understand things. When you go into prayer with him, he then becomes your king. And you're speaking up to him. You're putting your petition before him as the all-powerful one that can help you through situations. Those are two different ways that we look at him in Judaism. So when you sit down and you open up the book and you're studying the word, he's there with you, helping you. And he loves it. So study is good. The understanding that the control he actually has over us, that everything that you've gone through in your life up to this very minute, or up to 10 minutes ago, led you, what is it, 3, 6, 10 people here to be in the same room, on the same screen. If you changed your life in any way, shape, or form, you wouldn't be here today with us. This is the path that God led you to be here and do this and learn these things. So, respect it, honor it. Don't look back at it and feel regret. Don't say, well, these other people, I shouldn't be, I'm going to teach them this and I'm going to do all these other things with them. Forget it. Get out of it. Leave it alone. The more you focus on the past, the less you learn about where you are today. Now, I know people want to reach out and evangelize. And I know people want to tell other people. Terry, that letter you wrote, was it Matthew
6:33.
6:33, and then you put, now that I got your attention. That actually, that was a very, very good blog you did, and you can probably adapt that for yourself to tell other people, but it doesn't make any difference what they think. What matters is what God thinks. In your relationship with God, that's what makes the difference. The minute you get that in your head, you've stopped blaspheming God. Is that simple or is that hard? I don't know. I, back in the 70s, started trusting God totally implicitly on everything. And I wasn't a frum Jew. I didn't follow all the halakha, and I ate pork, and I did all this stuff, and I went crabbing on Chesapeake Bay and partying and all that kind of stuff. But I trusted him completely in my life. And everything that happened, I knew that was from him. Went through some hard times, but from the time I committed myself to him until I actually committed myself to him in action, I noticed a difference in our family. We didn't have sicknesses, and our things went well for me, and things went well for the kids, and it was a great experience. And now that I'm actually doing what, it's even a greater experience. And it's so easy for the rest of the world to come into this experience. But the first thing is you have to leave things behind, which is tough. It's kind of like an alcoholic or a drug addict or something like that. And I know your family's going to get upset. I know they're going to say things to you. And I know people are going to be calling you up and crying on the phone, saying, oh my goodness, I'm so worried about you. What's going to happen to you? But because you've started reading the truth, you know what's going to happen to you. You've come away from the blaspheming of God, which is actually what the other religions do. You're honoring him. You're starting to walk the way he wants. So he says, and remember, Abraham, when he was doing it, he was just starting to walk. And God contributed to that to him, to righteousness. It's the same with you guys. It's the same with every single human being. Being righteous isn't, this, well, look at me, I'm so big and righteous and I do all these right things. No, it's your relationship with God that makes you righteous. Knowing him, treating him respectfully, doing everything in your life to do it the way he wants it done. I know I keep saying this over and again, but it's that simple. Now, go ahead, Terry.
We know that the commandment, the prohibition of blasphemy, can be reworded to say that we respect the name of God. And what I'm getting here from what you're saying, that doing what he has told us is respecting the name.
Absolutely. What would your father tell you if you did something, if he told you to do something, you didn't do it? You disrespected me. You didn't do what I told you to do.
So this respecting the name really goes more further than just saying a curse word or getting mad at God. And
absolutely.
It can go so much deeper.
Yes, that's so true. Troy, you got your hand up?
Hold on. Trying to unmute. I'm going to unmute you.
I got it. Sorry, my phone's. Anyway, is it that word? I sometimes see the word on Facebook groups or whatever. Hello Hashem. Hello Hashem. It's like somebody was arguing or something negative happened. Somebody said, "Oh, you're doing hello Hashem" or something. And I can't remember the word. Is that related to that? Like if you do something positive, you're giving, like Terry said, doing this. It's giving glory or praise to God's name, and then if you do something negative, it's cursing God's name. Is that what?
Exactly right. That's the word is Hilul, Hilul Hashem. It's just defacing or disgracing God's word and Him. Because if you do His word, you're disgracing Him. So, out of your love, respect, and fear for him, if he says, do this, then you do it. You do it with joy, not grudgingly. You know, someone told me a story once about three guys that were talking, and one of the guys says, you know, when I finally smell the garbage, I get up and take it out. And no, when my wife comes and and when I smell the garbage, I take it out. The other guy says, well, when my wife asks me to do it, then I'll get up and I'll do it. The other guy says, you know what? Every time I leave the house, I just take the garbage out. These are three different ways to treat God. You can wait till he asks you to do something, or you can know he wants it done, so you just do it because you've learned it. Or you can wait till it's all stinky in your life and then turn to him to get rid of the garbage. Three different ways to handle your relationship with God. I prefer to do, because I know it has to be done and he wants it done. I prefer to do that first without him having to tell me anything. But sometimes he'll say to me, hey, you know, you forgot to do this or you didn't do that, or gives me a little hint, so then I get on track and move forward. I never wait for it to get smelly. That hurts. You know, I went through an operation of almost about 60 days ago, maybe more. Yeah, 60 days ago. And I've been through this healing process that's supposed to take 90 days, the doctors told me. Well, I didn't believe it in the beginning, and I did something, and I hurt myself because I didn't listen to the instructions. And then I didn't listen enough to the instructions, so it prolonged it even more. And now I'm doing exactly what they told me to do, and you know what? It's working. So it's the same thing. God takes care of you in the same way. He cares for each and every creation. All of creation he cares for. Not just some, not just through others, not just, oh, this building over here is going to have salvation because they say this, and this building over here says, no, we got salvation over here because you're not right, we're right, and all that kind of silliness. When the solution is so simple. Don't blaspheme God in any way, shape, or form. Just do the things he said. Aside from those two, there's four more, and then of course the setting up of the courts, which you have no really jurisdiction on, but we do have civil courts in all countries. I mean, you know, court system. When the time comes, there will be a court system, a Sanhedrin, so to speak, for the Noahides, which will operate in conjunction with the Sanhedrin for the Jews, which is eventually going to be reestablished. And a lot of people started posting stuff that's like 7, 8, and 9 years old, where someone started, even some rabbis tried to start a Sanhedrin for Noahides here in Israel. But it's stopped. The website hasn't been updated in like 10 years or something. And people, the new Noahides think that they know everything, say, oh, look at this and look at that. And yeah, we do have a Sanhedrin. Yeah, they just don't understand. The process is happening. The community is building. People from all over the world now know it's easy as getting on the internet and coming together in a group like the 10 of us are here right now, or and finding a proper teacher and finding someone that can guide you in those, at least anyway, the 6th and the 7th, because the 7th one, which is the court system, is kind of, you and I can't do anything about it. It's the countries take care of it. And finally, when things start to really happen, there's a huge community, then maybe a Sanhedrin can be set up under the auspices of a Sanhedrin here in Israel, which has to come first, which there isn't right now. Bezrat Hashem, with the help of God, it will be one day. So, the easiest way to cover the do not blaspheme or don't take his name in vain is to think that every time I do something wrong, I'm taking his name in vain. Not only when I say it out of my mouth, but when I do wrong, I'm doing the same thing. what is all this about? It's about conscious living. It's about consciously thinking about everything you do, not reacting to anything. It means the minute somebody starts to get you angry, you got to say in your head, oh, wait a minute. Let's, I don't have to get angry back. I don't have to argue back. I don't have to debate back. I don't have to do those things. I can control my emotion. I can control the animal side of me, which is your emotional side, by the way. I can control it. I don't have to let it loose. I don't have to let the tiger out of the cage. Let me tell you, sometimes it's really hard. I had flash anger. I've talked about it before. Fortunately, it's under control. The only person that makes me angry anymore, and I think this is supposed to happen in close relationships, is my wife. Shira knows this. But I'm the only one that can anger her too. But anybody else, we can't, I'm not saying we just have arguments or something, but if you get angry in a couple relationship, remember, you're one. And there's always, in a one, when you come together as one, it's just like inside of you, there's two sides. There's this side over here and this side over here, and sometimes they come into conflict. So it's okay once in a while to clear air with couples. It's not okay to hold a grudge. It's not okay to, just like it is with anybody else, it's not okay to just treat somebody poorly. But it's going to happen once in a while. We're human beings. It's the way God made us. Just remember, the next time you do something improper in God's eyes, whether it's improper in your eyes or not, doesn't make any difference. In God's eyes, then you're blaspheming him, you're disrespecting him. Okay. Charles there too? Charles and Shaw, are you both there? I so much enjoy meeting, having meetings with people every once in a while on the internet. And Shira and I met with Charles and Shaw before she left. And we meet with Angelica and George every couple of weeks. And anybody else, Scotty, if you guys want to do it once a week, once a month, other people, we just enjoy talking and working with, I like to say normal, in quotation marks, people, because who knows what normal is. But for us, normal is people that love God, work with God. We don't try to debate each other. We just grow together in strength, from strength to strength. Amen. Anybody have any questions or anything they want to talk about? We can do that. Come on now. Thomas, you got to take him off of mute, right?
There you go, Thomas.
I got thinking the other day, I always hear how people are talking about coming out of Christianity and returning to Torah. But for me, I went to a Lutheran school for like 6 years, and I didn't even believe it then. 5th and 6th grade, I started getting in trouble because I was asking questions. But they put me towards paganism. When I was 15 years old, I became a pagan. I was pagan for over 30 years. I still believed in God, though. I just didn't pay much attention. And then about 4 years, a little over 4 years ago, 5 years, 5 years, is when I decided, I should come back to God. And I went to do the Christian thing. No, that just wasn't happening because I never believed the New Testament. And I heard about the Messianics, but they still believed in the New Testament. And then finally, a friend said, look, let me tell you about Noahides. And I was like, music went off, But everybody always says about coming out of Christianity and going to Torah. I don't understand that. I never was a Christian, really. I was a pagan. So I'm more pagan going to Torah.
Well, you're right about that, although pagan, in my own mind, when someone says they're pagan, that's like, they're dancing in front of idols and they're giving all kinds of weird sacrifices and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I don't think you were quite pagan.
I didn't do sacrifices. I did worship two gods, a goddess and a god. I was Celtic, but I didn't like sacrifice animals and stuff like that. It's basically nature based.
Yeah, that, I don't know if that falls under paganism. Yeah, yes, it probably does. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In fact, the goddess was Brigitte, the same goddess that the Catholic turned into a saint. Named Brigitte, which cracks me up every time I think about that. What links they'll go to pull people in. But I always hear people talk about leaving Christianity, going Torah. I don't know how that feels.
That's good.
True. I mean, but I can't. I can't talk to no one else that walked the walk that I walked in coming to Torah.
Well, that's also good. Basically, we like to relate our stories, how we got to where we are today. People like to share their stories. And it makes them feel better, and that they can talk to somebody, tell somebody about it. They feel better about the whole thing. But, and Shira tells people her story, how she came from Roman Catholic through all the different things, just like you did, Messianic and this, Pentecostal and all that. You weren't Pentecostal, you went someplace else, but it doesn't make any difference. People like to relate their stories, and sometimes it can help people. But it can't, when you tell a story, it can't be done in a way that you have regretted any place you've been. You can't hold a grudge on where you were.
I don't do that.
No, I'm just saying, but some people do. Some people do, blogs about it. Some people debate about it. Some people do TV programs about it. But the focus shouldn't be there at all. That's something that has to be left behind.
There was one time the family, well, my in-laws and their family thought that I needed religion because they said this paganism wasn't right. So they took me to this Pentecostal church. And it was one of them ones where they lay hands on people and all that stuff and dance and all that stuff. And they said I should go up there, and I did. And I'm watching these people on the right of me, and he's touching them, and they're falling back and everything else. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And then I got these two big guys behind me, and he touches me on my forehead, and he pushes it, and I just stand there. And he says something else, and he pushes me on my head again, and I just stand there. And I just like, well, what do you think? And I put my hand on his forehead and pushed him. I said, what are you trying to do? I don't understand this. They're like, the next thing I hear is, oh, he's got demons in him.
When I was a kid growing up and television first come out, they used to do wrestling, the fake stuff.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite programs were, of course, Howdy Doody, because I was in that age group. If you don't know who it is, Google them. And wrestling and Oral Roberts. I used to sit for hours and watch Oral Roberts. And I used to laugh. I thought it was the greatest program on earth. How could people, when I was that young, I was saying, how could people fall for that stuff? I used to think it was like wrestling, all fake. Well, something that's done to you in your mind isn't fake. And some people fall victim to that.
He used to do tent revivals.
Yeah.
That's one of the people that guy went to. He was a fake illness guy or whatever.
Benny Hinn is big on that, but boy, he's a millionaire because of that stuff. Everybody is.
That's a good comedy show.
So anyway, the point is that if you know someone that's moving forward but doing it looking backwards, try to get them to turn around. Try to get them to remember that if they hadn't done all that, they wouldn't be where they are today. And they wouldn't be looking God straight in the eye today.
That's one of the things I learned from Rabbi Laser Brody is not to be ashamed of your past. And over the last few years, just like my last blog on my new site, I use a lot of my past to actually communicate with people because they know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's a stepping stone.
I actually learned more about Christianity when I was a pagan.
That when Rabbi Brody says, don't be ashamed of your past, this is actually in Chumash. It's actually in the 5 books of Moses. It doesn't come out and say that statement, but it essentially says that when you turn and face God and you start walking with him and what he wants, not what you think he wants, but what he wants, that your whole past changes. What you did in the past then becomes a merit to you because it brought you to him.
Yeah, that's a major teaching of Rebbe Nachman.
Yeah. That it's okay. I mean, it wasn't okay at the time you did it, but in the end you turned to him, so it's okay. It becomes a merit because it brought you to him, and you don't have to say, oh, I'm still a sinner and I'm not worthy and da, 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 da. You say, okay, I did those things. I told God I wasn't going to do it anymore, and it helped bring me to him, so okay. And done deal. You can just forget about it. I still remember in church I used to teach at that there was every Shabbat this guy would come and lay down on the floor in front, up by the altar, and cry and moan and bang his head on the floor about what a terrible guy he was and how unworthy he was. He was blaspheming God by doing that. God doesn't make not a one of us unworthy. God makes us in love, and we're good, and each one of us is worthy of a relationship with him. Each and every individual is worthy of a relationship with the Creator, with God. There's no unworthiness in us.
Better than I ever have.
Pardon?
I can't say I feel better than I ever have. For once, it feels right in my life.
It frees you up. It actually sets you free. It takes you out of that Egypt of where you were and brings you out. First you go into a desert for a period of time, and then you cross over into the land of milk and honey, God's land. Spiritually, I'm talking now.
Thanks for saying normal people, because I haven't been called that in years.
We have a saying amongst us Jews that if a rabbi isn't smiling, then he's not a true rabbi. Now, I know it's a harsh thing to say, but God says everything you do, you have to do with joy. Well, if you're doing it with joy, you should have a smile on your face. You should be happy, not morose and not depressed. Of course, we go through those little times of depression and stuff, but not to get stuck in it. It's a fun, enjoyable, joyful life with God. It's not a burden.
Well, thank you for listening, y'all.
Thank you for sharing.
Charles and Cheryl has to go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we're all going to be getting out of here shortly. Next week, we're talking about do not commit murder or injury. That's what we'll talk about next week. So if you have questions or anything. By the way, if anybody has any suggestions of topics, just let me know. And we can talk about it. No problem. Let Terry know. And of course, the offer of meetings stands. Whenever anybody wants, or just send me a message on Messenger, Facebook Messenger, and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. Go ahead.
You know, you were talking about the time and everything, why more people. I mean, East Coast wise here, some people are addicted to their TVs. 8 o'clock is like prime time. I wonder if that could be part of it.
Well, maybe it could. I don't know. But it's not my problem. That's their problem.
I don't care about television. So.
Yeah, we don't even own one. We haven't owned one in years. At least 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
We don't do that. Go ahead, Angela.
What does Torah say about addiction, people and addiction? Like, I help people out of addiction. What does Torah really say?
Well,
Would be one I would like to know.
there isn't any specific injunctions against addiction other than it falls under the thing of kind of if you talk about drug abuse or alcohol abuse and stuff like that, it tells us we're supposed to be in control of our mind at all times.
Okay, these are people that are off the street. These are people off the street. They don't, they don't go anywhere. They know there's a God somewhere, but that's about it.
Usually, well, there isn't anything specific that I'm aware of, but I'll take a double check on that. These are people that have gotten lost. They've gotten lost in their heads and in their hearts. And to reach them, you can't go and say, God doesn't want you to do this, because there's no specific thing other than when it talks about, now I'm not talking about sexual stuff, I'm talking about addictive stuff like opioids and marijuana and all that stuff.
Because that kills.
Pardon?
Because that kills you.
Okay, Scotty. Talk to you later. See you next week.
See ya.
That comes more under not committing a murder or injury or being kind.
Okay.
But it's under a general classification.
Okay.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Angela, do you have the Divine Code?
Yes, I do.
Look under murder, personal injury, and
Okay.
see if there's any instructions there that could help in addiction. I don't know everything is written there. I think the 3rd edition, they actually expanded or worked on the murder section about the.
I have the 3rd.
Look under. I'm not read up on all of it, but I kind of agree with Pesach, because my mind was thinking personal injury,
Okay.
do to yourself. I think there's some stuff in there on that, but I'm not 100% sure what it would be.
Okay. I will check it out.
But that's a really good thing because all of us, I mean, even though I don't like work with the addicted people, but
yeah,
we're going to run into that, especially if snow hides as we begin to build communities. We're going to run into these situations, and we need to learn how to, according to Torah, how to help people, not command them what to do, but help them like you're doing.
Right. I've been doing this for 12 plus years.
Yeah, that's a tough road to work on.
Yeah.
Shira, that's why she got into social work in the States, because she wanted to help people with drug addiction, alcohol addiction, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But she very quickly found something out which made her feel kind of inadequate. They would rather listen to someone that's been there, done that, because when they tell their story, they know that the person's feeling what they felt.
Mm-hmm.
And so she left it real quick. She after university, she just opened her own little business. But
My thing was alcohol. So I can identify with those kind of people. And I used to,
Yeah, the 12-step program's a good program. They just don't go quite far enough in the God department.
Yeah, and I would like to know. So I will check it out, what Terry had suggested. So I'll see. I know.
And you might also send somebody like Rabbi Singer maybe an email,
Okay.
because he has been so many places. He's probably has run into this, especially with him being a chief rabbi of Indonesia for a long time, and a lot of things go on in those little third world countries. He may have run across something. He may have an answer for you as well.
Okay. I know how I used to in the past deal with people like that, but I'm doing Torah now, so I want to know, what does Torah say? I don't want to go back to how I dealt with them before, because I know how I did, but now this is different now for me. It's a different thought pattern. It's one God and there is no other.
That's true, but see that
it has to do with a lot of the people needed something to hold on to because they had nothing. And so I'm like, okay, there is a God out there. And do you trust him? This was my past, okay, believing in the Christianity part and that kind of thing. So now it's different. Like I know that I don't quite know the difference on how Torah sees it. I know how I did it in Christianity, but I don't know exactly what Torah says. So I will check it out in this way.
Yeah, you can check it out. Torah is not going to truly give you the answer of how to cure somebody from an addiction. The Christians adapted it to recruit more people to have faith in Jesus. But the Torah, we're supposed to help these people and do the best we can for them.
Yes.
But do it in the framework of the one God. The way that Christianity uses it is an emotional thing from the heart.
Yeah.
And it's I'll get some more information. I'll let you know. I will check with some of the rabbis here at Spot. We have we have AA here at Spot, but it's for the relatives. It's set up for relatives because we essentially don't have that problem.
Yeah, it's a big problem here.
Yeah.
Vancouver area, and it's huge. It's very bad. But yeah.
Can I make one suggestion that may or may not be helpful? And this is something that comes to me as far as Torah goes. Look into and ponder and pray about the conversation God had with Cain in Genesis 4, starting in 6 and basically verses 6 and 7. Because he talks about, your countenance falling, you might be able to meditate more into this, but it says in 7, surely if you improve yourself, you'll be forgiven, but if you do not improve yourself, then sin rests at the door. Its desires for you, yet you can conquer it. And you could possibly ponder and pray about this in the application of an addiction, that the addiction's desires for you, and like I said, in learning also the workings. You can't go straight to them yet, but as long as you have the knowledge, putting the knowledge in you about the workings of the Yetzer Hara, and how it works on you. And by praying and meditating and looking into these things, Hashem may guide you in how to go against this, because he knows people are in these situations and he sends the doctors per se, to help. It's just something I'm just, suggestion.
Okay.
Because I pondered, this is part of in my path of leaving Christianity. When I was a Christian, something stirred me to study this set of passages in Genesis 4. And I read these passages almost every day for 2 years. I didn't know why. And I told my wife one day going out to work, I said, I don't understand it, but I believe the answer to life is in the book of Genesis. And that's before I knew anything. And it was just from this passage, just the more I pondered, the more I got out of it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Terry, for that. I will check it out. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good thoughts, Terry.
Yeah. Very good.
But Troy's holding up something.
Oh, he's on mute.
Hold on. Let me unmute Troy there. Can you unmute him?
All right, sorry.
There we
Yeah,
go.
it's on the AskNoah.org site. I just put in addiction, and I guess somebody has a review on a book it's subject into traditional Jewish Torah-based perspective of the 12-step plan. And so this guy he looks like a large article, but so it looks like Terry's got something too. But yeah, AskNoah.org, and I guess and search addiction, and I might be able to find it on there. I just Googled it.
Thank you.
I know who you need to contact. When he said that, review a book. I have this book. It's called Do Unto Others, but it's Rabbi Avraham Twersky, MD. He created Gateway. It's an addiction program.
Gateway.
Yeah, it's hold on here. I got it's his program or his center is called Gateway, but it's for addictions.
Okay.
He's a rabbi. He works all across the board. This is a really interesting book.
Oh, okay.
That I've got. It's called Do Unto Others.
Oh, okay.
And he works with Catholic priests, non-Jewish people in different faiths all the time through the program.
Yeah.
Let me see here. It says here, Rabbi Twersky, which is very famous. The Twersky brothers are really famous rabbis. Is an associate pastor of psychiatry at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine, lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's the founder and medical director of Gateway Rehabilitation Center, a nonprofit drug and alcohol treatment system that Forbes magazines has cited one of the best in the country.
Okay.
So, when he said book, that reminded me.
That's right. Oh, I'm going to look it up. I will look up that one. Yeah. Absolutely.
But he's already, he uses, as far as I know, he gave up, I think his, what they call pulpit rabbi type work, I think in like 59 to go after learning how to deal with addictions, drug and alcohol addiction. Mm-hmm. And so that right there may be your answer.
Okay. Because I know I was looking for mentors. There is no such a thing as mentors in the church. I called many of the churches, and they didn't know. Oh, well, we don't do that. And I thought, what do you do? But again, it's very hard to find a mentor for a person. The last one that I had was an 18-year-old girl. She overdosed on fentanyl, and I was supposed to see her the next day, and she had died. And it's very bad here. So my heart goes out to those kind of people who think that they have to either end their life or to numb themselves because they've gone through so whatever. But yeah, and so that's why I wanted to know about, okay, Torah, what do you say? What does Torah say? I know Torah does say not to go that route.
Yeah, essentially, but there isn't a.
There's nothing on it, and yet there is
No,
so much about it.
there's nothing on it. This because most of the people that do this have become this way because of a mental condition, the way they think.
Oh,
Yeah, and Torah is all about thinking straight,
yes.
and we don't have individual. There's, as far as I know, in the Torah, there's no. What the Torah would tell you is have compassion for the people, help them the best way you can, and using the resources you have, and that's it. And there's nothing there for the other people to grab onto if that's what you're looking for.
Would it be under harming your body or under something like that?
Well, you could tell people that, but it never specifically says in the Torah, don't harm your body. It says you're supposed to take care of it, but it doesn't say don't harm it. You're supposed to eat properly, and he tells us how to eat and all that kind of thing.
Oh.
There's a lot of things that the Torah doesn't get into for the reason being that there's a lot of things we're supposed to take care of here on earth.
Yep.
And we're supposed to devise whatever processes are good for the people that we're working with, as long as it stays within God's guidelines, it doesn't violate any of God's stuff. We can do whatever we want.
Okay.
And if you're looking for that spiritual angle, just grab on JC and he's going to heal you of everything. I've even heard Jews say, well, I became a Messianic and all of a sudden I lost I'm not an alcoholic anymore or anything. But they could have used anything to say the same thing to.
Yeah, true.
So it's just,
I will try these.
try and maybe get some ideas from that. But there's actually no Torah definition on, as far as I know. I've never read anything about it.
Oh, okay.
I get people saying, oh, you see, drugs are okay because it says in one of the things that God created both samim for people to use.
Yeah.
And so they say, look, we can use cannabis, we can use this, we can use that, but they take it all out of context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to do it too, but I quit because I knew better. I didn't want to go that route because eventually you will die. Your end is, when you look at it, you're going down, 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 downhill.
That's true. And a lot of people know that from their addiction and still can't stop.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a whole story. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's a whole story. Like, yeah, I could talk on hours on it, but I just wanted to know all that part. But thank you so much.
Okay. Meanwhile, I'll check with a few rabbis. Maybe there's something Gemara or Talmud about it.
Okay.
But nothing that I've come across so far in my studies.
Okay.
I mean, it's something like we don't even talk about. I don't know why.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I have to go.
You're welcome.
It is
I'm
7.
going to have to go to my eyes starting to close. So I'm going to grab me a couple hours sleep before I go to morning prayer. So join us again next week, and thank you all for listening. If you watch this, the recorded version, join us live. We want you here with us. Let's talk. Let's do things together as a community, not as individuals. God bless you all.
Bye-bye.